Hi, Dr. Rob.
Hey, Tammy.
We've got bunches of questions, so let's get started. I have been sober as defined by SA.org for the past 10 months. That's awesome. I betrayed my wife through use of pornography and the lies and deceit that surround keeping that secret for the last 13 years of our marriage. No physical or emotional affairs or chat rooms. I attend regular meetings through SRH, that's sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Thank you for mentioning that. We have drop-in groups, etc., and talk to guys in group almost daily. I have been in a 12-step program for 2 months and I have a sponsor. My wife is pursuing a divorce as she needs it in order to heal from the unhealthy things that I don't see the rest of this one. I don't. So I hear.
Come back.
Yes. Yeah, but I don't see the rest of that.
I've been writing
question,
notes because
okay.
Oh, here's this person. Maybe this is someone else. But so if you wrote in the chat, and I think this person did, Matt, won't tell them the last name or
Don't say
anything.
the names. Yeah.
You have to put it in the question.
Yeah,
Q&A,
you have to put it in the
we don't
Q&A
answer the chats.
I don't get to the chats because we've got 7 questions here. So
Right.
I'm not sure
Q&A.
what this person.
They'll come back.
I put it in answered, but yeah. But my thought is, all you can do is take care of you. What your wife chooses to do or not do is up to her. And I know we've had clients who have been served divorce papers and treatment. So it's one of those things where, and then they navigated and they are still together, eyes wide open. So I think that there's always more to the story, but if that's the path that your wife needs to pursue for the moment, that's the path she needs to do. All you can do is take care of you, because I can guarantee if you don't, it won't get better. Like there's no hope of anything if you don't. So any comments on that?
I just wanted to say, well, just that this isn't your average situation where a couple hasn't been getting along forever and they decide to divorce, or one person, decides to go be with someone else. This is a really troubled, painful, confusing time for spouses. And for some of them, it's like sleeping in the other bedroom. For some of them, it's like, I want to separate our bank accounts and I want a divorce, or I want a separation. I don't know that the motivation behind either one of them is that different. It's, I want safety. I want to know that I'm being taken care of since you weren't looking out for me in the past. It doesn't necessarily mean this relationship is going to end, or even that it's going to end in divorce. But I think it's important to I try to be very compassionate toward the spouses. You love him, don't divorce. You love someone and you still need to take care of yourself. So we just don't know. The jury's not out. And I think that's often the case in our world compared to out there where people say, I'm getting a divorce, and they do. Go ahead, Tam. I hope that was helpful.
Next question. Hi, Dr. Rob and Tammy. I'm the SA. Discovery was 7 months ago. Formal disclosure was 1 month ago. I am working with a therapist and attending SAA meetings. My husband and I also started attending couples counseling. We are both doing good individual work, but what system, program, or therapy modality do you suggest we utilize for healing our relationship? Is there a comprehensive approach you recommend?
Well, I think I could recommend some. I think Tammy could recommend some. But what I see in this question doesn't kind of warrant that. And what I'm seeing is formal disclosure was a month ago. So to me, you're just beginning as a spouse to come to terms with what you've heard. And I would imagine for a while, there's going to be anger and hurt and frustration. And at this stage, what I often expect from couples right after disclosure is still more, you've ruined my life, I hate you, and I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, and please forgive me. I think you guys would need a little bit more time, maybe 90 days, to be with your individual work and your support groups to work on kind of getting ready for the next step. And I don't, I know couples that aren't speaking after disclosure. I know couples that are holding hands. I think it's just a process. But I think to jump into what your need is as a couple is premature, because your need may be about intimacy. It may be about sexuality. It may be about parent. I mean, who knows what will actually show up when you're ready to do it. So write me back, right? This is Tammy at seekingintegrity.com. We will help TAMI. We will help you find a couples therapist who does this work. For me, it feels a little early. But Tammy, I think there's some books that we know of that they might want to read, like the
Well, that's sexual reintegration. So like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure that that's the issue. So there's some great books. You'll find them under the resource tab on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. But it sounds like you already have a couples therapist, because it says we're both doing good individual work, and we attend couples counseling. So
No, it's, oh, okay.
yeah,
Didn't get that part.
So what I think that there will be things, I think you will feel like these are some stuck points. Maybe it's communication, maybe it's navigating, maybe it's understanding the boundaries, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like you're in that process. So I think a really good couples therapist is going to use a lot of modalities. It isn't as linear as do this, this. So I suspect if you both are doing your good individual work and then working with a good couples counselor, they will be able to help you both individually and as a couple navigate, like now we're having a little trouble with, like I said, communication. It may be, he says this and I go, oh my gosh, I want to run, how do I stay emotionally present? So it's complicated, but I don't think there's any
Right.
one modality that you go, do it this way and it's all going to be good.
Well, now that I heard that part, I agree with you about modalities, but I think you have to have someone who's truly trained in this work, because
Yes.
someone says, "Oh, cheating, blah blah," but they don't understand what we're really talking about, and also I don't want them judging spouses, in a codependent way. I want them working from a prodependent stance, which is, this is not your fault on any level to the spouses. So I absolutely think, as Tami said, their approach is almost less important to me than who they are and their ability to help you negotiate through this situation. I'd leave the approach up to the therapist.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will be.
Well, and a couples counselor, the client is the coupleship. It's not either of you, it's the two of you. So as long as you are both feeling supported in that, and sometimes it's going to be, well, it feels like, he's taking, my side or that side. Yeah, but if you both are in it for the relationship, then at the end of the session, hopefully you're going, yes, I can see how this would benefit our relationship to be able to move forward.
I want to say one more thing about a couples therapist is that, first of all, to you folks who are new, couples therapy initially is not really that helpful because there's so much anger and hurt when you first start, and you may already be in couples counseling, but you really need your own support at that point. So I just want to mention that early on, these people have done discovery, they've done a disclosure, they're working with therapists, they're going to 12-step meetings, they are prepared for this situation to grow. And that's very different, actually, Tami, to say it, than some people who call us and they're in the woods. So, but good work, guys, for being at this place, doing this. I mean, all that stuff, you're going down the right road, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Dr. Rob, seriously, do you think that there are many men who are not into porn? Why have I not dated one or had a relationship with one of these men? All of the men I've been in a relationship have used porn and tried to keep it secret.
Okay, I think these are two different issues, right? Do I seriously think that our men are not into porn? I would say that many men are into porn. And the problem with finding out how many is that we will lie. So if you put us on a survey, oh no, I don't look at porn, but the truth is we do. I don't know the percentages, but I would say it's well over 80%, maybe 85 of men who look at some kind of pornography, whether it's a magazine, whatever it is. I'm not saying that they're compulsively doing it or they're lying about it, but I just think that many men, I mean, we are visual. That's how men are built. We like new stimulation. So, this is why, by the way, not personally and not related to sex addiction, we like strip clubs. We like porn because we can look at it. We like visual and it's new all the time. Two things that really appeal to us. So I wouldn't say that I would say you're very unlikely to be involved with a man who hasn't looked at or doesn't occasionally look at porn. However, the question is really more the secret part. That's the part I don't want. If you look at porn occasionally or it's part of your life and you're not an addict, unless there are spiritual or religious or very personal moral reasons that I don't want you to do that, in my marriage, it wouldn't be a big deal unless the person were an addict, in which case I wouldn't know how much, I wouldn't know what they're looking at, and it would freak me out when I found it. So again, Tammy and I talk a lot about trust being the issue. And had this spouse said, I want to look at porn and, I don't want you to find the computer, let me know in advance, let's talk about it. That's a very different situation than the one you're describing. So relationship and porn, yes. Tried to keep it secret, no. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think that it's the secret stuff. But I also think, but I think it's challenging to be as transparent early on in a relationship, with, I think people are afraid to talk about this stuff, so not being able to have the words to use, the communication tools, is what, and shame, and not going to get into Western culture and all of this kind of stuff, but on some level, it's one of those things where, people don't talk about it. So then all of a sudden you find it and, and you're upset because it's the secret. So yeah, anything that isn't free to be discussed, and then gets shame filled and secret, ends up feeling like a betrayal within the relationship. So.
I mean, I want to add to this because I did a survey with Dr. Schneider about this particular issue, and what we found is something like 72% of spouses felt cheated on when their partner was looking at porn. They felt like they were being compared to, they felt like they weren't good enough, they felt like this person wanted to be with someone else. Even, it brought up a lot of stuff for them. But I doubt that many of those spouses knew that that person was looking at porn at all in advance and that they had talked about it. And by the way, this is how trust is built. I may not want you to know that I look at porn because I want to do it whether you like it or not. But when I think of the relationship first and not me first, the answer is always better.
So next question. Hi, thanks again for seeking integrity. If I don't know who my husband's acting out partners were, can I still demand to know their names? My disclosure was a year ago and I still would like to know the names.
Tammy, do you want to start with that one?
Well, I have feelings about that. So I've had multiple partners call me, and actually one of them, the affair partner's name was Tammy. So she had a reaction to me, even though I said I spell it Tami, because of that, so like knowing the names. I mean, at some point, I think if it was your best friend, a family member, if there's certain people, that you're going to be running into, it is fair to know. But just if it's random people, you will be triggered by every name. And if you find out the name, are you going to go look for them on Facebook? What rabbit hole is that going to take you down? It was bad. You had disclosure a year ago. I think it's really more important, what is he doing now to rebuild trust? That would be, if you're focused back on a year ago or before, your guys are not moving forward. If you're focused on, okay, how is he showing up that's different and showing integrity and showing honesty, that would be what I would focus on, because, then you've got vision for hope for the future. So that was my thought on that.
Yeah, I agree with what Tammy said so strongly, which is if this is someone if it is someone in your world, and I don't care if it's the regular grocery clerk at your grocery store or your sister's best friend, if it's someone who is in your world at all, someone in your workplace, whatever, you need to know. And we actually believe that that is one of the things I believe you should know before disclosure, because I don't want you talking to your best friend who's also having an affair with your husband, and you don't know that until disclosure. So this is actually one of the few things I absolutely push the addicts to tell you in advance. By the way, the other is related to STDs, and the last one is related to anything that we should worry about. If there's an issue with kids, those are the things that I think you need to know right away. But if it is, this can also work not to your advantage. I think for partners, there's always this little itch. It's like, what if I just knew a little more? I would feel better if I just had the answer to that. And I think that's kind of a trick we play on ourselves, because I've seen so many spouses get all that cell phone information, which is what they wanted, and then they say, well, now I want this. And so because what you're trying to scratch isn't really the information, it's the lack of trust. I would also say to you that one of my concerns would be is if you're really in a healing process and then you find out these names. I've had spouses, I want to call every one of those women, I want to call their husbands, I want to call his mother-in-law, and you were fine, you were doing better, but all of this is in front of you and it stirs up all that stuff. So, but I would absolutely want to be sure it was no one I knew. That I think you have every right to know. A year out and want to know their names feels like a world of trouble to me.
So the next question, my SA is now in treatment. I have my own history of SLAA and have been sober myself for 9 years. Awesome. Walking through D-Day and the aftermath have triggered me in wanting to act out. My SLAA issues come from a history of incest. And now with this trauma, I feel again the desire after years of not. How can I separate addiction and trauma in this as a betrayed partner and addict in recovery? That's a great question. Thank you for asking it before you acted out.
And it's a really painful question too.
Yeah.
I guess my response to this is just to explain why we act out. And if we could just go there, and I teach this to the addicts, and I don't even know if I have a podcast on this, but we don't act out just because we're having bad feelings or good feelings or a good day or a bad day. We act out because of the needs, the emotional needs that those feelings generate. So if I'm sad, I actually need someone to comfort me. That's an emotional need. If I'm feeling lonely, I might want someone to give me a hug and spend some time with me. That's an emotional need. If I'm feeling down on myself, I might need someone to cheer for me, another emotional need. So I would imagine that there's a whole lot of needs that didn't get met when you were growing up, if that was going on in your family. And not only the experience of what I went through and the abuse in the past is going to come up, but how do I get whatever needs I didn't get met then? How do I get them met now? And if you're spinning with that and feeling like acting out, my sense is that you really need some people to pour your heart out to. You need some people to hold you. You need to maybe go back and do some more work. It's not a punishment. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just, how could it not come up based on this? How could it not be there for you? And anyway, so I mean the feelings about what's happened. But to me, feelings, and I'll say this to everybody, if I am sitting in front of a hot stove and I put my hand on it, am I going to have a feeling? Tami will say, yes, you're going to have a feeling.
Yes,
and what's the feeling? Thank you. And
Pain.
if I put my hand on the hot stove, it's going to hurt. What is the point in the hurting? It is information. That's all it is. The feeling is there to tell me, take your hand off the stove and don't do that again. That's a bad thing. Or whatever, whatever the need is that gets generated physically, it's the same emotionally. If I'm really sad about my dog passing away and I just want some comfort, I can't do that by myself. It's a need I cannot fulfill. I have to call Tami and say, Tami, my poor puppy, you remember? And then she says, I'm so sorry. And I know how you feel about it. She can't fix my pain. And she can fix my desire to act out, because comforting and supporting, that's what we don't get as addicts. We run away from our feelings and we never get to the point of, oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. We disappear from that. So anyway, all I'm really saying to you is everything you're going through is bringing up some emotional needs. And that is why you want to act out. I think, like Tami said, go back to SLAA and bring those issues with you and take a look around there and talk about what's going on right now. By the way, there are no easy answers to this. I can't fix it for you. It depends on what your history is and where it came from. So Tami and I often throw out general ideas that may not be specific to your question. We're just trying to make something generalizable for everybody.
So I threw in, I typed in the answers. So Troy Love's work is all about those attachment wounds, the betrayal wound, the abandonment wound, the neglect wound. There's all of those. And I think that will really resonate with you. I didn't mention, but Enid, he did a podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction, as did Enid Gray, who wrote Neglect the Silent Abuser. Great book. She has a podcast with Dr. Rob too. But Troy Love has a betrayed partners group for women on alternating. I think he has some male partners too. But anyway, he's got his on alternating Thursdays. And then he does a men's group for addicts on Fridays. But he does the webinar with us on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So you'll find those in the previously recorded. I resonate so much with getting wounds poked and having the language to go, this is what, this is what's happening. I can use my executive brain and think about it. So I don't have to just be going, oh my gosh, I have to escape, I have to feel. And so I think the more you connect, I'm glad you're here. Keep sharing, like Dr. Rob said, SLAA, the women's group tomorrow night, any of those resources, just be you, share where you're at. And in the sharing, I really do think, it'll take it down a few notches too. So, okay, next question.
Oh, I just wrote a book that I thought was helpful about trauma called It's Not Me, It's What Happened to Me by Dr. Christine Courtois. She's a friend. I think it's a really good book. I also wrote down feelings are not facts, feelings pass. And that desire to act out will go away. And acting on it ain't going to leave your head for a very long time. We're going to say,
so, well, so he put it into I'm going to repost that to everyone.
Sorry.
So I'm getting it there. So, well, that's that one. So let me see if I can copy this. Anyway, so I'll do this with the next question. So, okay, the next question. Is it possible for a recovering addict to have a healthy relationship involving shared sexual kink? What role would a kink play in recovery or at all? When is it safe?
So let me explain what kink is. It's like a fetish. So someone's into leather, they're into lace, they're into panties, they're into feet. People have different forms of desire that aren't all traditional. So, and we do not treat that as something being wrong with someone. So if you're a man who likes to lick women's feet, or a woman who likes to, take a whip to a man once in a while, or, we don't really, or if you're a man and you want to be with men, in the same way, we don't pathologize or apply pathology to what arouses you. We can apply pathology to some of the ways you act it out, but we don't necessarily apply pathology because you enjoy this or you enjoy that. And a lot of people, I'm explaining other stuff related to this. A lot of people will come to us and say, oh, I'm really into S&M and I hate that. That must be sex addiction. It's like, well, no, that actually is kink. That's a fetish. That's part of what arouses you. And you need to see how that you can integrate your life into a healthy way. So when I think about 12-step recovery related to sexual issues, I think about how can I integrate healthy sexuality into my life? And healthy sexuality varies from person to person. For some people, it's a couple who just do, the basics. And for other people, it's something like this. So what role does kink play? I think you can have it. I think you can incorporate it. I think you can enjoy it. I think it's safe when you're being honest with each other. Now, if it brings up the desire to act out, that's probably not a good thing, and it needs to be examined. I think, to be very clear, one of the issues with kink, in my experience with men in particular, is part of what we like about the kink is the newness of it. And doing it with the same person regularly, especially if someone we love, is harder because it's a fantasy. Kink is about fantasy. And so it will take a lot of communication, a lot of discussion, but here's the thing, it's not going away. Like no matter what happens, this is what turns this person on. And so if you're going to stay together and you don't want either one of you to be acting out, you have to find a place for it in your relationship. And I'll give you one little example. I worked with someone who wasn't really into what her spouse did, but while he was doing it, she would hold him. She would stroke his hair. She would be with him in an intimate way, even though she didn't particularly want to do the act that he wanted to do. So safe means doesn't bring you to acting out. Safe means you trust the person. They're not going to take it anywhere you don't feel safe. Safe means it's all communicated and it's all open and honest. Safe means you've shared it with your sponsor and you've shared it with your therapist and you're sharing it with us. But to say, I'm going to get rid of that because it's too exciting or it's not going to be gotten rid of. It's more how you deal with it.
Thank you. Okay, next question. I'm having trouble co-regulating with my wife. She gets triggered by anything and I know how the mind wanders as I try to co-regulate it and bring her back. I repeatedly fall on my sword, but about a half hour or so, she doesn't come back. I start to get attacked by my past behaviors. I know 16 weeks of true honest recovery does not make up for 16 years of abuse. What would be the best course of action moving forward?
I'm smiling now. Well, why don't you start?
I'm having a hard time because I have the vision of I'm falling on my sword and she's not. So
Well, that's the way
I
I
see.
tell them in treatment. I tell them when to fall on their
Oh,
sword. That is
oh yeah.
actually something.
Okay. But I'm going like, okay, it feels like, yeah. So what I hear is, and I wonder about the true honesty. I mean, because like you don't flip a switch and then become, truly honest. And be careful with how truly honest, because if it's only 16 weeks, have you done a therapeutic disclosure with professionals? What are you doing? I don't hear anything about what you're doing, for your recovery. So just stopping the behavior doesn't change things. And what we started with this earlier is you each need your own support. This is very, very early in the process. So you getting your support, her having her support, and navigating the spaces between you. But you I mean, you're showing you can't be her support, and even co-regulating. I mean, it's really early. She's betrayed, she's angry. Her job, as Dr. Rob often says, is to be angry for the first year. So it's impossible. You're stopping the behavior is the start point for you, but she's lagging behind because she's had discovery, and all the stuff for 16 years that she thought was true is now she's learned it's not true. And what's her reality? It's so confusing and painful. And but since you tell the guys to fall on their sword, tell me more, because to me this felt a little dramatic, like, oh, I'm falling on my sword and she's not,
Well, out of the
not
doghouse.
appreciating it. So
Out of the doghouse is about stop wielding your sword and put it in the ground and fall
okay.
on it, because you know.
Okay.
But that's a different. I figured out how to do this. I put the Wikipedia definition for co-regulation in the box in case anybody wanted to understand what that was about. Co-regulation is really a concept of a couple learning when emotionally, physically, on every level, really learning to observe their partner to when their partner is struggling with something.
Okay.
And, it could be a move of the lips, it could be a twitch of the eyes, it could be that they get angry, it could be whatever. And I, as a partner, observe that you are not regulated. You are not happy. You are unhappy in some way. And what I know about you in therapy is what things help you to feel more comfortable. I have learned these 4 things are what help you when you're not regulated. And so by doing the things for you, because I notice what you're going through and I know these things will almost always help, I can help regulate you, mean calm down. On the other hand, I might be really agitated. Well, you're really agitated, and we might have to come together, and you're making me feel better, I'm making you feel better, and we're bringing things back down together to a place where we can really connect and talk about them. You are not ready for co-regulation. That's what I was smiling at, is like 16 weeks is not co-regulation. Co-regulation is 2 years into the healing of this. What I hear is, I don't want my wife to be so angry. And how do I get her to be less angry? And why don't the tools that other couples use to make each other feel better work on us? Because she doesn't trust you. You have violated the foundation of your relationship. You are the last person on the planet that she is going to be co-regulated by. And guess what made her dysregulated? You and your behavior is what dysregulated her. So that's right now, to help her regulate her emotions. That's the job of a therapist. That's the job of a sponsor. That's the job of one of the support groups for partners that we do for free, by the way. You cannot regulate her on any level. And if you try, by the way, it's angering for the partner, because it puts them in a dilemma. Well, you're kind of being nice to me and I feel good, but I'm so furious and you ruined my life. Should I be nice to you back? Or so anyway, that is co-regulation in a nutshell. By the way, Tami, the
Yeah.
leading person who teaches co-regulation and writes about it is Dr. Tatkin. And we have a podcast, if you wouldn't mind dropping it in there. I have to answer my husband about dinner. Just give me 1 second here.
Okay. I will add the podcast link. You will
Sure,
be able to
of
find this
course.
and all the other ones that have already been mentioned on this link. So
Thanks, Tami.
Yeah, so here's a this is back to the person that wants to know the names. Sorry, I meant to say my husband says I don't know who his acting out partners are. So the wife does not know who they are. At disclosure, he didn't say their names, but it's a year later and I still want to know the names. So I stand by what will it serve? And like Dr. Rob was saying, if you're scratching this itch, now then you're going to know the names. Then you're going to go look at Facebook, and then you're going to do what, and then you're going to call the husband. And like if he is truly showing you that he's making progress, at some point, letting go of those things, those details, I understand you want to know safety, but if it's, I'm making this up, if it's Mary, then every Mary you meet, you're going to go, is that Mary? Or every time you hear the word Mary, like I said, somebody called me and she knew the acting out person was Tammy. It wasn't me. But like that was a trigger for her. So, why do you want to, I mean, I get you want to know, but what will it really serve? I think it will keep you in this, downward spiral rather than being able to move forward. Yeah, I always think if we're anchored, still tethered to, all this garbage from the past, we're dragging it along as we try to move forward. So, any other thoughts on that?
Well, I put this, by the way, if you see me go away for a minute, I'm not leaving you guys. What I'm doing is looking online for things to send that I think are important. And I just sent the link to a saying by an author poet. And she talked about, we see this often in recovery circles, it'll be on a little thing and it'll say, it's about finding a hole in the street. And, the first time you just walk down the street, you fall in that hole, and then the second time, I don't know, Tammy, you see the hole, but you end up falling in anyway. And the third time you see the hole and you go down a different street. And that's the process that I'm listening to, is like, there's a process of letting go of this, but you're still falling in the hole. And now, if it were me and I was doing disclosure, those names would have come out a year ago. I would have worked with a person to say, who are these people? Especially, that would have been important to me, but not their last names. But there was this person named Jeanette when we were in Hawaii, and I paid her, like that. The only names you must know is if you know one of these people. And I think I love what Tammy said. It's like a rock rolling downhill. You get those names, and then you're going to start to this and that, and before you know it, you're going to be a year back. So will the relationship. However, I want to validate, I completely understand as much as I can your desire to know those names, and that you would feel safer if you knew what they were. And again, if your spouse has not told you the name of someone or would ever come across, that would be an absolute bottom line for me. We got to go back to therapy and talk about that.
Okay, so the next question, is it common for sex addicts to say that the feelings they had for a affair partner are no different than the feelings they have for their spouse when they fell in love with her? Is it also common for the addict to feel as if nobody has ever made them feel like the affair partner? My SA husband has said that there is no difference in feelings for the affair partner and feelings for me.
Well, first of all, what an asshole.
I know, I
Is my
want to
first
slap him
thought.
silly. So yeah.
I mean, who would say that to somebody, especially if they were still in a relationship with them? So anyway, I think that your spouse, whoever this is not particularly skilled at empathy to say something like that to someone that they have had any kind of relationship with, no less a marriage. First of all, I don't think that there's an unfair comparison being made here. These are apples and oranges. Being married in a relationship, I know this, is dinner, clean up the dishes, someone's sick, you clean up after them, you do the laundry, you plan the bills, and you have a good time. And that's or not a good time. And that's a relationship where you have a long-term commitment. An affair is hotels and dinners and secret chats and illicit sex, meaning that no one knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to carry the burdens of sharing money, sharing responsibility, so you can't compare these things. And for your spouse to be comparing them tells me that he has no idea, or she has no idea, what love is. Because falling in love and the intensity, and that's what you do with affair partners. It's new and exciting over and over and over again. But who would want to be with that person whose butt looks the same way it did 12 years ago? You have to find new ways of loving when you're in a long-term relationship. And it can't be that, wow, everything's exciting and wonderful. That's the first year. or it's having an affair, but that's not real. So that's certainly not what he's going to find in a long-term relationship. So Tami, thoughts?
Well, yeah, same thing. I was like, really lack of any kind of emotional intelligence with that. But I also was thinking, like, you don't know how many people call that that are the former affair partner. So this keeps happening. It's not like, oh, that affair partner is going to be so special and they're going to be the ones that, because then it happens again. So, the problem is him. This is one of those where I don't know if he's trying to get help. He has a long road to go.
You're being kind, Tami.
I'm being
This is someone
extremely
who should
kind.
be in our treatment center.
Yes.
This is the
Yeah.
kind of guy who comes in and says, I've got a problem. And I say, what's the problem? They said, well, it's this one or that one. And I don't know. And of course, the problem is them. It's neither one of you, on some level. So this is a real treatment candidate, someone who should get their butt and do the work, because this person's going to destroy. If they want to be with you or you have kids together, whatever, that's just going to go. This cannot be the way that you're being treated. So I've said what I need to say.
Yeah. And
We
the
do, by the
second
way,
alternative is a divorce attorney. So, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I don't, because, like, that's not fair to you. This is so not fair to you. On any level, oh, well, the affair partner, I love you both equally. No. So.
And I want to add to that. I'm like being very direct here. I've run treatment centers for almost 30 years. I have seen so many relationships and families saved because of the depth of that work. We run a treatment center here in California. I run really, called Seeking Integrity. And I think we're doing some of the best work at the most affordable prices in the country. And if you can get here, if you put it on your credit card, if you can borrow it from your mom, if you're in trouble, we will help you. And if you want to save that relationship, we're all over that. And I just want to say that aloud, because if one person comes to treatment, then the other 72 of you get all this other work that we do free. But I really will call them as I see them. If somebody comes up and it really seems like they need treatment, I'm gonna tell you that, even if they don't come to us.
Yeah. Well, we both had the same reaction on that one. So, hello, Dr. Rob. Thank you for your work. I'm an SA chemsex, attending meetings regularly and in recovery for almost 6, not sure, weeks, months, or years. And doing well in terms of sobriety and avoiding my bottom line behaviors and occasional middle circle behaviors. I have issues with delayed orgasm causing intimacy issues with my spouse, which I struggle with and am looking for ways to help with this. How long will it take to recover? Are there ways to help with this? I am been prescribed by my GP Cialis and anxiety pill for anxiety issues. I hate prescriptions by GPs. They don't have the training for all of this. So, I mean,
Well,
fine if you've
you
got
understand,
strep throat,
someone comes in there. I'm sorry. Someone comes in their office and they bring a bunch of samples and they say, here's the best pill in the world. And doctors are busy, if it's in the family of pills, they know about it. Well, let's just try. And if you have an emotional or a mental health issue, don't go see a GP. Psychiatrists are trained to do that. And by the way, some of them are terrible, but some therapists are terrible too. We can help you find someone and we don't get kickbacks. It's one of the fun things in our job. But let me answer the question. I don't know how much you've been involved in the work we do. One of the leaders in our therapy community at Seeking Integrity is a man by the name of Dr. David Fawcett. And if you're attending the chemsex meeting, you're probably involved with him. And I don't know if you've asked that there, but I'm pretty sure in his book, he talks about sensate numbness and sensate challenges, and that people who have been through such intensity as meth, that, they're anhedonic. I don't know if you know that word. They don't take a lot of pleasure in most things because you're kind of burned out your pleasure cells. 6 months, many people that we work with are not interested in sex at 6 months. They can't have orgasms at 6 months. They can't get aroused at 6 months because the drug has just really affected their functioning. Now, if you had this problem before you did drugs or did all of the whatever you did, then I would say it's more of a psychological issue. And I would probably work with a sex therapist or a professional in this area to try to make it work and work differently. So what do I want to say about that? I can't tell you if it's psychological or physical, but a doctor can. And by the way, when anyone comes to a treatment center or therapy, this is how I'm trained, and I think every good therapist, we always rule out the physical. It's, if it is the physical and I miss that, you can see me for 5 years and I haven't helped you. So absolutely, if you were to come to see me, I would ask you to please go to a urologist if you're a man, a gynecologist if you're a woman, and get yourself checked out. And it's embarrassing and it's uncomfortable to talk about, but this is their job. And then if you're checked out fully, then we would talk about the psychological. And let me tell you, chemsex, I have to say this about people who, one of the things that we find that's going on underneath inside people who have chemsex problems is that they use the drugs because they had issues with sex. And that's why they went together. And it was easier to have the sex and not hate themselves if they got high, or it was easier to follow through on the sex if they got high. But when they got sober, there were sexual issues underneath. And if you're a chemsex person, you probably were having intimacy and sexual issues long before you ever used drugs. And so now you've got to come back to all of that. And I could say one more thing. I hear a lot of, when I was using, I used to have tons and tons of sex. I couldn't believe, when I got sober, I didn't really want to have sex at all. And really, those are two ends of the same thing on some level, which is you're avoiding something when you're using, and you're avoiding something when you avoid it altogether. So I think you have a lot of questions to ask yourself and ask professionals related to what I'm seeing here. And yes, Cialis and anxiety pills are not going to help you, I don't think. Tammy?
Well, my thought was you're focusing on orgasm. And if you change the focus to being together, sensate focused therapy, where, it's massaging feet or whatever. Bill and Ginger Burkaw, Dr. Rob mentioned them earlier. They did a podcast with Dr. Rob, which I've put the link in the chat, but that is, they do sexual reintegration. And I think I think with so much of things, I'm a runner. Runner is mostly psychological. It's all up here. Your body will follow. And I think that that's true with sex. If you are focusing on the orgasm and, all of this, it takes away, first of all,
Thanks, Tammy.
I know the experience. It's one of those things where you're focusing on the end game, not focusing on the experience. And so if you can just take that off the plate and just doesn't have to happen, that's okay. But if you're together and you're enjoying each other's the intimacy of just connecting in a meaningful way, that probably will reduce your anxiety, and who knows what will happen. But yeah, Dr. David, if you haven't been on his webinars, he has those on Wednesday nights, but he does have the chemsex drop-in group, which is a new one on our site, on Tuesday nights. So that's at 5, both of them are at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I'd invite you to join, ask those questions, and discuss that too. So next question. My husband is 69. He has masturbated to fantasy for our entire marriage of 40 years. We've been separated for 3 years. He's seeing a CSAT candidate. He still acts out this way every week, says he's working hard at his once a week counseling. My question, what do you recommend? I asked to see as far as change. He is a withdrawer. He withholds information, withholds his heart and thoughts. I am the one who listens to podcasts, reading books, counseling. I do IFS, internal family systems. We have new drop-in groups for both men, and the partners group had 19 people for the first week last Wednesday. So join those. My trauma is much better. That's awesome. It's been 3.5 years since D-Day.
Well, my curiosity is about the state of this relationship. When I talk to couples who, well, a couple of things. 69 years old means that you've probably been together 40 years, right?
40 years.
So a lot of couples that I work with at that age, not even age, they've been together that long. They don't want to tear up their life at 70. They don't want to start all over again. And so, the idea of divorce and not getting back together and all that kind of stuff is very, very difficult if you've been in a long-term relationship that long. Some people just say, we'll just figure it out. We've been together all this time. But you're already separated. And there are two things I see as a therapist in here that I just want to call out because they're where my eyes go in terms of the feelings. I saw, we've been separated 3 years. And then I saw, my trauma is much better. And I'm thinking, you don't really want to be with him. If you wanted to be with him, or he really wanted to be with you, it wouldn't have been 3 years. And you're telling me that you also what is it? We've been separated. I love this. We've been separated 3 years. My trauma has been much better in the last 3.5 years. I don't know, but it tells me that maybe this relationship has caused a lot of pain that you weren't aware of, has brought up a lot of issues in the past that kept you really stuck, not to mention the trauma of the acting out and all that. But what I always pay attention to is separated 3 years. You know, that's not a couple that's moving toward each other. And sometimes I want to say this as a general thing as a therapist. It's not unusual when we talk about this in therapy school for a couple to come to us and one of them wants to split up, but neither one is really able to say it. So they come to therapy in order to be able to let it out and actually say it. And what I see here, if you were the person who did the separating, is someone who is not particularly eager to get back in their relationship, because if you're just looking for what you would want to see related to change and this person's still doing this, I don't see your future together. By the way, Tami will tell you, but I'm going to say it for her, that it is almost always the spouses who listen to the podcast, read the books, and then they hand it over to the addicts and say, go do this or listen to this. And that's when we get it. Yeah, Tami?
This is absolute validation of what I tell people when they're calling. If you think going to see even the best, this is a CSAT candidate, so if even the best CSAT on the planet, and you think that in 50 minutes once a week, and he says he's working really hard, and I'm going like, that's his lips moving, and he's still acting out. He's acting out every single week. He's still doing, he hasn't
That
even
you
stopped
know
the
of.
behavior. Yes, exactly.
There may be a lot more.
There may be a lot more, but if all he's doing is 50 minutes once a week, and he's probably telling his therapist how the last week has been or whatever, I mean, he's not dealing with any of those underlying issues. He is still withdrawing. He's still withholding. He is not showing you any sign of change. To me, I mean, you are shifting, you are making progress, your trauma is better, you know. So I'm with Dr. Rob. It's like, you know, you can continue staying married to him. I mean, many people, you know, stay technically married to their spouse for financial reasons, for whatever, all
or
good.
The grandkids, they come
Yeah,
together,
but
whatever.
it's one of those things where you're taking care of you, and that's so it was like, what should I have for realistic expectations? He's being really clear what your realistic expectations are. He's not really willing to do anything. He's checking off the box that I'm seeing my therapist once a week. You know, big deal. So sorry, but good for you for taking care of you.
So sad to end such a long relationship, but I feel like you've kind of already ended it. Yeah, we got another one. We got so many questions.
Oh, we've got a bunch. Yeah. So I'm an SA who just started in recovery close to a month ago. I have a sponsor, a therapist, and have been attending 12-step meetings every day since the precipitating event. My betrayed partner has expressed a strong desire for me to participate in men-only 12-step groups. I'd like to, but they are harder to come by. How important is it that I stay exclusively men-only groups? The 12-step groups I've participated in have been attended by men and women who have good boundaries, no shenanigans.
Well, I wrote a book about this question called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating, because this is such a classic, no offense to the person who wrote it, such a classic error for a sex addict to make, in my opinion, which is your spouse, you just started recovery a month ago. Okay, so you're brand new at all of this and you're doing the work. You're seeing a therapist and you're going to meetings, and that's all really fantastic. But what you don't understand is you don't have any rights in your relationship anymore to say no. If you want this relationship to continue or work, whatever your spouse wants you to go to men's groups, yes, ma'am, I'm going to go to men's groups. Or if it's a man, yes, sir, I'm going to men's groups. At this point in a month, you need to do what makes your partner feel reassured, what makes them feel safe and comfortable. And if they say, I just don't want you to be in those meetings with women, I guess you're straight, don't. Because what are you saying? Well, it's a little more difficult and it doesn't really meet my schedule. I'm sorry, but your relationship is on the line. And and besides, what is your partner going to feel like if you push back in any way about wanting to be in those rooms where there are women? I don't think your spouse is going to take that well, no matter how you frame it. So what I see here is a lack of humility in someone who really shouldn't be asking these questions. Like, how can I get what I want? but more, how can I find a way to heal my relationship and put my spouse first, above what I want? That's a good start.
And
Great
I was
question.
thinking, yeah, in addition, because they're harder to find, but you can find them. All the drop-in groups that we have on sexandrelationshiphealing.com are gender specific. So we have men's drop-in groups. There was one this morning. There will be another Thursday morning, another with Troy Love that I mentioned on Friday morning. And then there's one Sunday night with Jonah Anderson, who does some of our work groups, the Sex Addiction 101 level 1 work groups for us. So all of these people are there to make a safe space. Same with the betrayed partners. There's a safe person there to hold the space for those groups. So there are men only groups. Those are not 12-step specifically. So yes, doing your 12-step work, having your sponsor, etc., great. But I think if you are diligent, you can find the right group. So, but yeah,
I want to
go ahead.
No, I want to refer back to what you just said, which is we set up a whole world, a community for people to go for recovery, for partnerships. It's all free. My point is that it never even occurred to me to do a gender mixed group. Never even occurred to Tami, like, let's see if we can, unless it's a couples group where spouses and their partners are together, or married folks. But I would never put together a mixed. Now people go to them, they get a lot, but I know for me the distractions would be so profound. Maybe not for me in that group, but I know, for example, I've had so many men say, well, I was sitting right across this woman, I couldn't focus on the meeting, I just kept looking at her. It's like they went into a bar, it's not their fault, so to speak, but everyone's opening up emotionally, and there is the source of what they act out with across the room. By the way, the answer to that is find a different seat so you're not staring at the person who turns you on. But a better answer is don't go to meetings where those people are hanging out. I think we got that one.
Okay, so the next
I like
question is
that answer.
what does ready for couples therapy look like?
I'm trying to find that.
It's I answered a couple things by
Right.
typing, so it's up. Yeah, it's the red one.
Okay, I can give my answer. I think Tami is just as good at these particular questions as I would be, but so there needs to be sobriety. There needs to have been disclosure where one partner knows everything, or the partners or there's no more secrets. Each of you need to have some kind of external support, because couples, I've seen someone, well, I have an addiction therapist, well, I'll just see this person for a couple. You have to have your own people. The intensity of the fighting has reduced to the point where you can actually listen to each other and talk to each other, and not just it end up in a shouting match or a withdrawal match. To me, I mean, the word is really when you feel really stable within yourself and you're ready to look at your spouse, not with a pointed finger, but with some openness. I know this is vague, but that's how I feel. The addicts are like, no, I'm so sorry. And the spouses are like this, and there's really not much to be done. So another answer might be a good 6 months into healing is when I would start thinking about couples work. But Tami, you may have a different, you work with.
So I can't remember who said this, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true and brilliant. So if somebody isn't sober, if like the last example where he's still acting out every week, if they're not being able to be truthful, then it's like rowing a boat with one oar. One of you, the partner, is showing up to row the boat, and you're going to go in circles, and you're not getting anywhere. So yeah, I really thought that was a useful analogy to visualize, of like just going in circles, and you don't get anywhere. Which, if you're trying to move a relationship forward, you want to have some momentum to do that. So I always say, like you said, get the support for each of you individually, and then as you're able, the addict to stop the behavior and there's some ability to be truthful and hold the space, then doing couples work, it makes a lot of sense, and having a professional that knows how to do this, like Dr. Rob said, that can help you navigate this. I hear all the time from people who go to generalist therapists, and they don't have the skills. It's not for lack of wanting to, but they don't have the training and the skills to be able to help couples. And so then they spend another bunch of time on a treadmill, not really getting any traction. So getting the right help, which is like what Dr. Rob said about Seeking Integrity Los Angeles. That's what we do. This is all we do. We don't do, zillions of things or be 100-bed campus. This is all we do. But our clinical team, I would, does it better than anybody, I think. So.
And I just like to add that I really respect that not everyone has the money to go to, I go to a therapist, you go to a therapist, we go to a therapist. And it is not the only road to healing. It's an easier road because you have all that support. But trust me, there are addiction groups, there are partners groups, there are couples groups. I think what's the couples group that, Recovering Couples Anonymous. There are actually 12-step programs that couples can go to. And now that it's online, they're all over the nation. So I think that you can work and negotiate your healing without therapy. It's more challenging and it takes longer. But listen, fixing my own car takes longer than if someone else fixes it, at least of my time. So, but it still gets fixed. Well, maybe not.
I
don't
was
think
going
I
to
can fix a car, but
I used to be able to help, but they've all changed and they're all electronic. So probably not anymore. But anyway, so going back to one of the first questions that we had, so it said, my wife is pursuing a divorce and she needs it in order to heal from an unhealthy things that happened in our marriage. I struggle with showing up for her in her own struggles with her need for divorce and all the things she is going through surrounding that. I find that my fears and my shame block me from truly showing up for her. How can I jumpstart that conversation? And what are the kind of phrases I could use to show her that I care about her? I have hope that we can one day be back together, and she has shared the same hope with me.
Well, this feels, and maybe I'm wrong and completely off base, but it feels a little bit manipulative to me because you already have a message from your spouse. Is it they're separated or divorced? Is that you have a 3-year message? Is that couple?
No, it's not that. No, it's read the one just above that was the.
Oh, they're all together.
The Ryan H from 512 and 517.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. This is very long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why we started with it, but then we didn't. We were like, "What's the question?"
I didn't realize there was step 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So
been in SA.org for 10 months.
Yeah. I'm looking. There was something this person said. I don't understand how you can show up. That's what I was thinking. What do you mean show up for her in her struggle and need for a divorce? I don't think she needs you to show up for that. She needs a lawyer for that. I think that your job is to show up for your own recovery and make sure that whatever's going on in your marriage doesn't send you spinning into addiction. And it's interesting because the questions you ask me or us would be, to me, the questions I'd ask my wife. Do you see us getting back together? Is there something I can do to support you? What would make you feel? Are there ways we could do some therapy, whatever? Could we move toward each other? I would say, though, if you need to figure that out, that's something that can come together. Your partner knows better than I do, or better than Tami does. But to give them expressions and things to make them feel better feels a lot like if someone was divorcing me, I'm not sure, or leaving me or separating from me, I'm not sure that I would think that I could make them feel better or be caring for them or show up for them. I think if someone's divorcing me, it's my job to show up for me, because I'm the one who's vulnerable to act out and all that stuff. I think this person wants like something that we can't give, which is they really want to make it work and heal, but divorce doesn't necessarily head toward that.
No, and I shared earlier that we know people that have filed for divorce, and what it really was it was a heterosexual couple, but it was really, he was doing his work and he understood that his wife needed to do whatever she needed to do, and that it was the result of his actions and his betrayal that this was what was happening. He kept doing his work, and as they were navigating the divorce, that's how they realized they really did care about each other and were able to, eyes wide open, move forward. But it would never have happened had he taken his gaze away from doing his work and focused on, how do I get her back? How do I get her back? So I really think you doing that, honoring that she needs space, supporting her ability to get the support she needs. Hopefully she's joining the betrayed partner groups on sexandrelationshiphealing.com and finding support with that. Hopefully she's got a great codependent aligned therapist so she's not feeling blamed or shamed for your addiction. So but her having her support, you doing your work and continuing to dig in on the things that you've been in 12-step for 2 months. So I've been sober for 10 months. So to me, I was abstinent, and then 2 months ago for 8 months. And then 2 months ago, I decided, I better go to 12-step meetings. So I'm glad you're doing the drop-in groups and all that, but I'm really kind of looking at the clock as 2 months, really early in the process. So I, hang in there, it gets better, but this is a journey. This is not like, all of a sudden it's all going to be better.
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing about this thing, which is, I hope that we can one day together and she shared the same hope with me. She may have that hope, but she's divorcing you. And so right now is not the time to be talking to her about the hope for the relationship. That's not where she's at. You may be there, but if she really wanted to move forward with hope for the relationship, probably she wouldn't be divorcing you. So I don't think that's what's on her mind right now. And if you really want to be kind and loving to her, ask her if you can help her move, or if she needs help with the divorce, or can we make this fair, or I don't want to fight you, or be fair and honest and loving in the process of what she's asking. And then let's see how that goes. She may say, oh my God, he's never been nicer to me than in the process of divorce. I never knew this guy could show up like that. Rather than, please, honey, let me show you how I love you. And maybe if I do more of this or that, you'll come back to me. That's not really it. Tammy, I have a feeling
we
it's
are
dinner
past
time
time
because my tummy says so.
I agree. So we're not going to get to everybody. Somebody did ask, how do I join Troy Love's Betrayed Partner Group, alternating Thursdays on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. He and John Taylor alternate. So John Taylor has Rockin' Relationships, great relationship building skills, not just for your significant other relationship, friends, coworkers, family members, crazy family members, whatever you need. But also then Troy is the alternating Thursdays. And we did add, so Matt Wheeler on Friday afternoon and Debbie McCrae now alternate for the Friday afternoon Prodependence webinar. So please join that. Check out all the resources on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Thank you, Dr. Rob. I will see you tomorrow, but we'll see the rest of you online or next Monday.
And I'm going to see all the people at Seeking Integrity tomorrow. And I'm really not as scary as you think. Trust me.
No, he just wants everybody to, to find the right path. So you can't do that if you're, yes, exactly. So, and I appreciate that. Bye, everybody.
Have a great night. Bye.